Chris DeSalvatore on the phone from Tampa, Florida. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mike.
Hey, you're sounding great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Hey,
actually tonight here.
Oh, that's true. It's an afternoon show in Sacramento. It is an evening show on the East Coast. Hey, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Hey, I want to ask you a few questions. This whole album is a concept album, 6069. What was your motivation for doing something like that?
Well, I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years now. The 60s were kind of an interesting time. There's a lot of music that came out, and I thought, maybe I ought to do something as a tribute to it. And there's a lot of different stuff, and it kind of progressed and changed through the era. And then it just eventually dawned on me, well, why don't I pick each year and create some music that kind of reflected the style of the music of the year. And then for the lyrics, well, maybe I'll just take some historic events that happened during that year and just use that as a vehicle for the lyrics.
Great idea. This song had a decided transition in it. And what's behind this song? This one's near and dear to me. I was born in the year 62, so what's the meaning of this song?
Well, this song was the influence of a couple of songs. The beginning is influenced by Little Sheila. That was a hit during the beginning of 1962. Later on in the year, Green Onions, an instrumental, was a big hit, and that was kind of that's kind of an interesting song to me because as I went through and I dug out songs and tried to see what was popular in 61, 62, that was really the first kind of song of that style, that was really a hit. I mean, blues was around, but that song, that style was really, that's something that everybody was hearing that was on the radio. So I think that was kind of paved the way for that kind of feeling for a song.
So you went from...
that's what the ending of that song was meant to do, was try to create that same atmosphere as Green Onions.
That's neat. So you went from Tommy Rowe, I think, to Booker T.
Tommy Rowe did Little Sheila, and Green Onions was by Booker T and the MG.
That's wonderful. See, a lot of people don't realize that you're quite the music historian.
I don't know if they're still around,
I don't know. I think they've been doing a lot of side projects. If you've caught the Blues Brothers
they're probably
movies,
in their 60s right now. They might still be rocking. You never know.
So the G and MG stands for Geritol. You never know. But anyway, that's a neat historical perspective, and every song on this album is going to have a historical perspective. The one I'd like to play now covers the year my baby brother was born, 1964. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, this one, I couldn't do 64 without covering the British invasion.
Exactly.
And obviously, the biggest event of that year was the Beatles coming to Kennedy Airport and then playing on the Ed Sullivan Show. All of that was transpiring, and that pretty much defined the music in the beginning of the year, and it sparked what went on from that point on. There was quite an onset of the cultural evolution there. It goes without saying, anybody that knows about that. But early when I was thinking of doing this CD, I thought, well, what am I going to do for 64? I thought, well, geez, I got to have a crowd sound in the background for this, and that turned out to be something that really I thought made this song. It had
it did.
I put in that the Beatles screaming crowd in the background, and it really made that come all together.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Ed Sullivan Show.
Was thinking what am I going to do for this song? I was listening to She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and Can't Buy Me Love, like the three big songs they had at the time. And I finally came down to, I'll do something like the tempo and the rhythm of She Loves You. So I went into the studio with that intention. And when we laid down the guitar track, it started to sound like Can't Buy Me Love. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, I got She Loves You and Can't Buy Me Love together here.
You can't go wrong there.
I started doing all of the harmony tracks. It started to sound like I Want to Hold Your Hand. I'm like, all right. This kind of all fell right together.
I love that. And it reminded me of the Ed Sullivan Show or the Shea Stadium concert. In that respect, you have a loud crowd, and of course, a clear nod to those guys in that invasion in the lyrics themselves too.
Yeah. I was thinking also too that the crowds were screaming so loud you couldn't even hear the music. And I'm like, well, do I want to do something like that? And I don't know. This is something I want to release. I want to at least have it. So we had a little bit of a back and forth on how much volume we wanted for the crowds.
A bit of a compromise. So this way, people know there's a song under there somewhere.
Yeah. Despite the way it went back, at the time.
Oh, that's great.
Those guys they couldn't even hear themselves. I think that's why they eventually started. They discontinued touring.
Yeah, it just became the world's greatest studio band after that.
Oh, God, yeah.
Hey, real quick question before we get into this track. How long did it take you to produce and make this whole album?
Well, I'd say altogether a couple of months. And we went back in, and, I'm a little bit meticulous myself. Like, we can finish the thing all up, and I went back there, and I drove Chris crazy, just, picking out little areas, and spent another couple of months just polishing things up, and, finally get to the point where I figured that I polished everything as shiny as I could make it, and, by the time we finished doing that, it was about mid-2000, and ended up releasing it in August.
And for those who don't know, Chris is Chris Hadding?
Chris Hadding, yeah.
Chris Hadding, your partner.
He provided some awesome support for the CD. He's a phenomenal artist, and he's got a studio, TGIF Studios, and it fell all together due greatly to his support, and I appreciate everything he's done for me.
Great. Well, hey Chris, we're going to get into some more music from the two Chris's out of Florida, so we're gonna cue up this 64 track, and we'll talk to you a little bit after it's over.
Okay.
You're listening to Sacramento's Voice.